I didn't tell you that story, but one time she was out filming me. I found out later it wasn't on the camera, and I said, well, she opened the thing and it comes on, but she didn't hit the red button and start recording, so I did all that work, didn't get it recorded. So, gotta learn how to use the camera. It's a little crooked, but there's nothing I can do about that. All right, well, last few weeks ago we did Revelation chapter 9, part 1. This is part 2. We'll have him read a little bit, and if you open your Bible and get to, oh, he's using it. Okay, that's fine. Let me open mine. All right, so all I was really trying to do is apply some logic and analyze the scriptures and come up with some ideas. If everybody agreed with it, that's great. If you didn't, well, that's just what I got out of it. It's what I've read in various places, and it's simply my opinion. I've gleaned from books and videos and that kind of thing. But there's a popular saying that truth is self-evident, and I think a lot of times when you read things, you just get an epiphany when you see something that you realize is true. So that was the whole idea. Read it, study it. And on that thought, did anybody go back and actually study what we did talk about? Because I left one huge glaring omission out, and I'm going to let y'all read that right now, which was Revelation 8:6, where we talked about the first atom bomb, and I left something huge out of that I thought at least someone, if they had studied that, would have come back and said, hey, wait a minute, you missed this. No one studied it, see? So I got you there. All right. But if you do figure it out, I'll buy you lunch, because it's one of these things where it's just logic. You've got to analyze what it says and think about what's there, and then you would have realized that there's something missing there when you went through all the other stars that fell and all that. If you compared all that, you would have realized there was something huge missing in 8:6. Now, one of the things, I got a few comments back on my video. One of the things that people mentioned was that about the rapture, for example, they preached that the first trump was World War I, and they spread it out over about 100 years, or at least some of the people mentioned that. I've never really looked into that teaching, but they said, they thought the first trump was World War I, the second trump was World War II, and so on, and then the rapture was the seventh trump right after the coming of the two witnesses. Is that what you heard people teach? No?
I'm not
Okay.
saying.
Well, that's, apparently some people brought that up, so my timeline just doesn't fit with that. But there's another thing I'd like to do too. I'd like to give you some homework, so then we'll have something to do in the future. Let's turn over to chapter 11. This is where the two witnesses are. I've always been taught that two witnesses were two Jews. Is that what you've heard? Most people have heard that? Okay. Well, I don't think that's the case. If you read through the narrative, which starts right there about chapter 11, there's actually no mention of two Jews. It just, so that was probably just someone's interpretation. In fact, it doesn't even say specifically that it's two people. And I don't think it is two people. I think it's two, and I'll call them entities that exist. And everybody basically knows what the two entities are. So if you can study that and come up with a correct idea about what that is exactly, I'll buy you a nice steak dinner, because I don't think anybody can do it. It takes a lot of study into that to, got to go back in time, you got to know your Bible pretty good if you're going to come up with that one, but I'll give you some motivation. Alright, so let's go back to chapter 9. There's one connection I didn't make in the first video, and that was the king. It mentioned the king, the angel of the abyss. Now that's in verse 11. Referred to the king is named Apollyon or Abaddon. And the king, it says, controls the helicopters. And I'm figuring most likely the missile that fell, which started it all at the beginning of the chapter, And I called that an atom bomb. I'm going to give some more evidence today that, in fact, it's other scriptures relate to that thought, that it's an atom bomb. But my question is why didn't it say the king of the abyss versus the angel of the abyss, if the angel is a king? So it makes a connection between kings and angels, but it repeats that further down. So I'm thinking that some of this wording, a lot of times in the Bible it says one thing and it actually refers to something else. Well, I think these angels in a lot of places are kings. You've got these wars going on. Well, it's the kings, the leaders of the country, that actually fire missiles and command men to go out. And I think a lot of times it actually means people, not angels. Okay, so we're going to get to that. The other thing I didn't describe originally was about the locusts and the stings in their tails. I think that's just an assumption he had from in his description. We said that the helicopters were most likely spraying something like CS gas. Well, I don't know how that's sprayed off a helicopter. It may just dump out the bottom, or it may have sprayers or something like that. I'm not really sure what it would look like. But he said the sting is in the tail because he describes it like a scorpion. So, you know, I think that's really just an assumption on his part as what those locusts are doing, which were helicopters. But what it said and what we talked about is the helicopters are ordered only to attack the men that do not have the mark of God. So my logic said that these helicopters must come from a Christian country, because they're commanded not to hurt the men with the mark, which would be Christian people. So they must come from a Christian country. So did anybody figure out which country they came from? That's where you got to study all this and draw it out. What really helps is putting this all out on the board and then connecting the dots, because I think Revelation 9 can be figured out. But there's a lot of things that interconnect in Revelation. There's a lot of things that interconnect, and if you don't have it up on the board, I think it's just hard to put it all together in your mind. So the other thing I said is that the locusts at that time were probably spraying gas, meaning they were out of bullets and rockets, and so they were down to gas, so that's what they were using. So if you follow that logic, then when did they enter the war exactly? Now I brought it back to Revelation 8:6. That's where I indicated the war started. Now let's look at 8:6. So no one figured that out, right? Read 8:6 again for us.
And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound.
Okay.
The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burnt up.
Right, okay, that's good. But so I use that description. I said that is most likely an atom bomb, and there's some other verses that also refer to that. But the question is where did the atom bomb come from? If you notice on the other ones, it all says a star fell, a mountain fell, this did. You know, it indicates a star fell, which to us means a missile. Someone saw a missile. But that one doesn't indicate where it came from, does it? So where did it come from? Where does an atom bomb come from if it's not delivered at the end of a missile or a rocket? Ah, light bulb. Okay. It's got to come from somewhere. So that means it was driven to the location, it was planted at a location, and it just went off. There was no warning. You see, it's not telling you where it came from. You understand that logic? Yeah. So I'm thinking that that actually was most likely a terrorist attack. Someone planted that bomb somewhere, boom, it went off. That's where the war started. It was a terrorist attack with a nuclear bomb. That's my logic. Does anybody have an alternate thought on that? You see, it doesn't tell you. It's just there. It starts out, boom, an explosion. Doesn't tell you anything about the atom bomb coming from anywhere, which is completely different than the other descriptions. Yeah. So that was that's kind of what I left out.
You know, a large comet or whatever from outer space that hit the Earth could create that kind of devastation too, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, a comet. In fact, I was actually going to mention something that happened in Russia called the Tunguska event, 1908. Yeah. However, that may not have been a comet. They didn't find pieces of a comet or a meteorite or any of that kind of thing there. The speculation actually was that someone did it, and that that was done electrically using ground wave, which is something we'll get to when I get to that part of my presentation. All right, terrorist attack. So I think that's, like I said, oops. Guess I gotta learn how to use this thing because I just went way too far. All right, so the whole idea there is that's why I started here in Revelation 9, is because we see this terrorist attack, we see these bombs going off, you see the beginning of this war, then you're going to know exactly where we are in Revelation. And you can start from that point and go forward or backwards and understand, I think, the whole book. If you've got a starting point that you can point to that you're sure of. So that's kind of why I started there. But is there anything else that corroborates this idea? Let's look back in Revelation 6:12 for a minute and read 6:12, because I think that does corroborate what it says. Go ahead and read 6:12.
Saying in a loud voice, deserving is the lamb that was sacrificed.
That's not 6:12.
6:12.
Oh.
And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood.
All right, starts out with an earthquake. And the sun becomes black. Is that what it said?
Yeah.
Yes, great earthquake, and the sun became black,
Okay, keep going.
and the moon became red as blood, or
Moon
blood.
becomes red. Okay. Go ahead.
Stars fell.
Stars fell. Okay. Well, isn't that what happened over in Revelation 9? Stars fell. And I said those were most likely missiles. Okay, go ahead.
a mighty wind,
A wind, a mighty wind, or a huge wind. Okay. Go ahead.
heaven departed as a scroll, the clouds evidently rolled
Heaven
together.
departs as a scroll. Doesn't that sound like the bomb and the scroll? Okay, go ahead.
Rolling clouds.
Yeah, rolling clouds, exactly. Go ahead. What else?
And every mountain and island was removed from its place.
What does that mean?
They disappeared.
Or shook, which kind of goes with the huge earthquake idea. And mountains and islands, things falling down, doesn't necessarily mean they're gone. But it starts out with the earthquake. What else does it say?
Excuse me, but mine says removed, because you're saying moved or removed.
Mine says removed, which sounds like it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be just.
Yeah, mine says removed. But every mountain and every island on the face of the earth couldn't be gone. But if you got a bomb that hits, if that's what it's talking about, then something's going to be gone. And yeah, it's going to seem like an earthquake. And the other thing it says stars fell, which is the same description we've got over here in Revelation 9 that we said most likely this is a nuclear war, which are the missiles coming down. And then you're going to have increasing destruction. And the other thing with a nuclear war, probably you're going to have a lot of that all at one time, because one bomb comes and then you've got the response. And then maybe you've got 30 bombs. You see, I mean, we've got hundreds of nuclear bombs. Who knows? I mean, if you had a nuclear war, who knows how many nuclear bombs actually might go off? We've got hundreds or thousands of those things. So all of a sudden you start having retaliation. If you've got 3 or 4 countries involved, then that's huge. I mean, that's just amazing. So yeah, it's gonna seem like the mountains and the islands are gone, and you've got a lot of mighty wind coming off the bombs. You've got scrolls, so you've got the atmosphere scrolling up, the sun becoming black from all the stuff that goes up into the atmosphere, and the moon becoming red, which is what I was saying about the bombs falling on cities. They're going to shoot them on cities mostly. Now, not all the time, because you've got military targets too, so that's not necessarily going to be a lot of people. But most of the time, they're going to shoot them at cities, which means you're going to have the hail mixed with blood in the atmosphere turning the moon red. That's just the way I'm looking at it. So I'm just saying, this is kind of the same idea right here in 6:12 of what we're talking about over in Revelation 9. It's just kind of a precursor to that. Okay.
And then finally they have the kings and the...
Yeah, go ahead and read that, because that's exactly what I was getting at. I think he identifies right there who he's displeased with, because all through Revelation you notice that he's talking about people that won't repent of their sins, and then he mentions those sins, and that's where we're going today. But what does it say there?
And the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks and of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?
Okay. So he's taken out wrath on people by allowing the nuclear war to happen or instigating it. In fact, it actually says in one place that it appears that he caused it to happen, so he's instigating it or letting it happen or whatever. But who's he saying that, who's he talking about?
The kings.
Pretty much everybody by the time he gets down to the bond. He starts out with the top people and works his way down.
Yeah. Yeah, well, kings, nobles, generals, and wealthy is kind of the way my Bible puts it. So those are all the people that we look up to, that spend all the money and do all the nice things for everybody, and we aspire to be a king or a president or whatever it is, a congressman or a senator. We aspire to be in those higher levels, and we look up to those people, yet here it kind of indicates that those are exactly the people that are causing the problem. Those are the people he's going after in the wrath. But he also mentions, I think he also identifies who he's not displeased with. Now let's look at 7:5. Or let's start in 7:4 and read that.
And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
Okay, so he's sealing these people to keep them from harm. So these are the people that he's not mad with. Does that make sense? Yeah, there's no wrath on these. He's sealing them up and protecting them. So go ahead and read that part.
Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000.
Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh. So he goes through and basically lists the 12 tribes. Now he doesn't mention the tribe of Dan, and he inserts the tribe of Levi, which wasn't originally enumerated as a tribe. So we lost a tribe, gained another one, so it's kind of odd. We could get into that, but the point is he's using this word tribes. Tribes were always specific families, because it's not like, that's a racial identification when you start talking about tribes. Well, Israel in general, but when you start talking about tribes, that goes back to specific people. So now he's saying that there is all these people, 144,000 people, but, okay, it doesn't mention it in this section right here. But it says,
Why were these people sealed and saved? What purpose did that have?
well, obviously he's not carrying out wrath on them. So he's not displeased with them like he is the kings and the generals and the nobles.
Do they have a specific
and the
service that they're going to do?
Well, doesn't this idea of putting seals on these people in this section,
They got
coincide with the people over here in Revelation 9 who had the mark of God? Isn't the seals of the tribes and the mark of God 2 chapters over, isn't that the same thing? Doesn't that make sense? I mean, here he seals 144,000. 2 chapters over, the war starts, and now we got these people that have the mark of God. He tells the helicopters not to harm those people.
Isn't that what it's saying when it says until the seal on the foreheads is servants of God? Isn't that what it's saying?
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there's your connection with, before we said, well, those were the Christian people because those would be the people that he wouldn't want to hurt. But actually, it says these are the 12 tribes back here 2 chapters earlier. They're the ones he's sealing.
I know it's hard that they would be super preachers, in other words, left to tend to God's people that was left behind.
Well, I always heard that we lost
I've always heard
the
that.
northern tribes, but here he's got all the tribes. Well, basically, if you want to look at it that way. So now he's saying that these are the people he's trying to save. Well, you know, from looking at it before, it appeared that it would be the Christian people that were involved. So now it's, we're trying to figure out who are these people exactly. So that's the question. Are they Christian people? Or are they truly the tribes of Israel from old specific families that are passed down? Families, tribes, that's the specific thing. I mean, even today, I'm not part of your family. I'm not part of your family. I can't, if you die, I can't go over and inherit money that you had, because I'm not part of your family. That's a specific thing. It's a family. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can actually find these tribes today. Number one, you got to figure out if there's 144 tribes, and it says in another spot that they're not blemished. They've got to have, number one, a father and a mother. Well, they're at triples, okay? And then they might have sisters, brothers. They might have children or anything else. Okay, so now all of a sudden you go from 144,000 to 500,000 or more people. So if there's that many people and they're servants of God, meaning that if you're a servant of God, you got to be out doing the things that would qualify you to be a servant, wouldn't you?
Right.
You'd have to either be teaching people or helping people or doing something. You'd have to be in church, I would suppose. You'd have to be doing something that would qualify you to be the servant. See? So technically, Christian people have always considered us to be the servants, and that's what we aspire to be, or servants of God. So, but here we've got something a little different. I don't want to dwell on that, but just wanted to give you that thought. Okay. My idea, the way I look at it, is the servants of God are the ones that go out and send missionaries to every country in the world. They print Bibles in hundreds of different languages and distribute them all over the world. And by the way, those printing presses for those Bibles historically have been located here in America or England. 95% approximately of all those Bibles that get printed are printed here in the United States or England, and then they get distributed. We've also sent medical teams around the world to help disadvantaged people for a number of reasons. We've funded literally hundreds of relief agencies, charitable organizations, Red Cross, all these people. We have an earthquake, who gets sent out? You don't see China. They've got a lot of people over there and a lot of money. They're actually sitting on lots of money. But you don't see them going out and responding to all these catastrophes that happen all over the world. It's the Christian people that do that, specifically. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the end of chapter 9, and we'll try to focus on what I really came here today. One of the things it says here at the end, and we got down, we're going to cover approximately verses 16 through 20. Okay. Well, the last things we mentioned is about the 200 million people showing up for this war. Okay. Then it says that they saw in the vision horses and their riders, and then they mentioned that they were had breastplates of steel, and then they had fire, smoke, and brimstone coming out of their mouths and their tails, most likely. So I said that was destroyers. the way I got to that idea is, I said, you know, what shoots guns forward and backwards? What shoots something that would be powerful enough to kill a third of mankind? Now, somebody brought this up and said, well, you know, they had the word ships back then, so why didn't they just say ships instead of horses? Okay. Well, I think the language of the day, if you started from the beginning, locusts equals helicopters. So they gave you the idea of a locust, but then they went into more detail about what that locust was, so that we could get the idea today. Look at the description, figure out what it was. A star fell equaled a missile delivering a bomb. Okay? Intense heat and hail mixed with blood equals a specific kind of bomb. It wouldn't be a hydrogen bomb, or wouldn't be conventional bombs. It would have to be a nuclear bomb if you're going to have the scroll. So, you know, the language of the day dictated how we're going to look at what's said and analyze it. Now, this horsemen's, horses and their riders, which it said could equal, you know, Hummers. That would be a horse and a rider, typically, or Jeeps from the past. The problem I've got with that thought is that how's that going to kill a third of mankind? You see, it appears that these horses and riders have some type of large guns. Now, there could be tanks. Tanks make sense if you have this size of a war. You've got tanks, but you've also got mobile missile launchers. You've got all types of weaponry, actually. So it appears to talk about one specific thing, but actually in the middle of the war, you've got a lot of things, and all of them could fit this particular description. Power in their mouth and their tails. The tank has a turret that turns. Their tails are like serpents having heads, you see. But it says, by these three plagues, a third of mankind was killed, meaning the fire, the smoke, and the brimstone. That's a big gun. Excuse me. I'm going to need some water. Somebody can grab me water. That's a big gun. To kill a third of mankind, I said, that's what destroyers do, and that's why I thought it was a ship. We already established that there was probably going to be other ships. There are already going to be destroyers, and the word Apollyon or Abaddon meant destroyer in another sense. I said that's probably a destroyer. But, you know, the point is, there's a lot of people being killed, and I think that's what it really boils down to. Although I've got a question about whether that really means a third of mankind versus a third of all those 200 million troops. Because a third of the 200 million troops plus whoever's there, that's one thing. But if you change that to a third of mankind worldwide, that's totally different. You see, that's a whole bunch more people. That's not just 200 million. Now you're talking over 1 billion people. That's a huge, that's over 10 times difference between a third of the battle versus a third of mankind. So I'm kind of questioning whether it really is a third of mankind or just a third of the people in the battle. If you got a battle where you kill a third of the people in that battle, you've killed a lot of people. Any battle. If you kill a whole third of everybody that shows up, that's huge, right?
Right.
Yeah, but if you kill a third of mankind, that's a whole different ballgame. Now, here again, if that's what it means, then that could reinforce the idea, back again, that's a nuclear war, because a nuclear war could kill a third of mankind a whole lot easier if you really do have a lot of nuclear weapons going off. You see? So I think, here again, that reinforces the idea of it having to be a nuclear war and all the major countries being involved. Because, you know, I don't see how you could do it any different.
You're saying it is mankind.
Well, isn't that what it says, a third
Yes.
of mankind?
Yes, I thought I heard you a different way, but I just.
No, I'm saying that to make it, if it's a nuclear war, that's the only way I could see it being a third of mankind. You say, I don't want to argue the point, I'm just saying that that would make it have to be nuclear war. Or, you know, we might have other weapons too, but it has to be, yeah, it has to be pretty dramatic, thanks. All right. So, if we go to the last thing here, why don't you read 20 and 21 for us.
And the rest of the men that were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone.
Okay. And what is that? What would that be? Looking at that, I would say that's looking at false religions. You know, your wooden idols. You go over to India, I hear they have hundreds or thousands of gods in some of these places, and each one, each little town has a different god, things like that. Well, yeah, that would be, you know, they make them out of brass, gold, wood, things like that. I think that's referring to religion, false religion. But go on and read the rest.
Which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts.
Mm-hmm. So now he's saying that there's a group of people that are not repenting of murders, fornication, which would be, you know, things like the porn industry, for example, but it includes adultery and other things. And thefts, I think Wall Street, banking system, things like that, yeah. And sorceries. Now, and we'll start with the fornication because I think that's the easiest thing to start with. And the reason is because I think all four of these things are not just individual people. He's not saying that there's people out here that, you know, like gangs out here on the street that kill people and they're not repenting. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the military-industrial complex. He's talking about the banking, worldwide banking system that right now is just stealing money from people, you know, they're just going crazy. No one's stopping them. The point I'd like to make on that is this is reiterated 4 times, and we'll look at the other verses. 4 times it mentions the same thing, all the way up to Revelation 19:2. So the point is, if you go through this whole part of Revelation, and he keeps coming back to these groups of people that haven't repented, don't we put people in jail for murders and thefts? But these people aren't going to jail. No, these people are being put in jail, see? He's not talking about people out here on the street. He's talking about industries that promote murder, industries that promote fornication, the porn industry. You see what I'm saying? He's not just talking about individual people. He's talking about industries. Okay, let's look at the other 3 mentions. Next would be 1820. Excuse me, 1823. Go to 1823. And then we'll do 21:8.
And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more in all of thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived.
21:8.
21:8.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is
Yeah, it's a little bit harder than that. You want to just give him a regular King James?
I
And
don't
take,
have it, does it?
But the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and the murderers, and the whoremongers, and the sorcerers, and the idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
22:15.
20:15. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers, and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie.
Okay, well, it has liars there at the end. Huh? Thefts. All right, so he reiterates the same ideas. He talks about liars and a couple other things there, but basically it just reiterates the same ideas. That we have these people that are doing the same things all the way through this section of Revelation, all the way to the end. He's still referring back to these people that are doing the same things, so apparently they're getting away with it. So originally he started out with kings, generals, wealthy people. Now he's talking about wealthy industries, you see, because that's what these industries produce, a lot of wealth. So we'll start with fornication. Fornication is Greek number 4204 and 4203. It's porneia and pornu or something like that. It looks like it's harlotry, adultery, incest, lust, people that practice idolatry, and whoremongers. So
Those Greek numbers are Strong's Concordance?
Strong's,
Oh.
yeah, Strong's, look up in the definitions, is Greek number 4202 and 4203. Porneia, which is where we get our idea of the word porn, the porn industry. But one thing I like to point out here in Branson is that we don't have a porn industry here. We don't have sex shops and all that here in Branson. So how is that possible? You go to every other city, and a lot of them, almost every place you go, they've got some type of porn industry. But we don't have that in Branson. So how do we do that here in Branson and keep that industry out? Because if you can do it here in Branson, logically, every city in the United States can do it. So how do we do it legally? Do you know the answer to that question, how we do it legally?
Well, I can't say we don't have that. We fight against and prosecute all the time. We do have.
But we prosecute using laws to keep it out. That's the whole point. And how does the law do that? I mean, how is it that Branson can do that, and yet we've got all these other cities that don't do it? Is there not enough Christian people in the other cities to do that, you see? No city wants a porn industry, but we, specifically here, we keep it out. How do we do it?
The citizens come forth and object to it.
Okay. Good point. If you go to the Missouri Revised Statutes, chapter 573, pornography and related offenses in the criminal code. I looked this up. 10 times it mentions wording to the effect of the average person applying community standards. And it says the same thing. Contemporary community standards. That's how they keep porn out of this. And the thing is, that same wording, you can go to every 50 states in the Union and you'll find the same thing. Pornography is based on community standards. So to keep the pornography out, how do you have to do that? You have to elect people that will do what you want to do. Obviously, we don't want it here in Branson because we look at it as it was going to affect our business. But hey, doesn't it affect business in every city in this country? It's just that here, even our businesses are we're putting a lot more money, a lot more time into keeping it out of our city. But the point is, we can do it legally. Every other city could do it legally. So if no one wants that industry, would you quit that? If no one wants that industry, then we can simply do it. And the way we have to do it is we have to elect godly men to office. We got to elect men that are going to do what we want them to do. And we've got to have businesses that say, well, we don't want it around us, you see. So they've got to be involved. But the church has to be involved. That's the whole point. You can't do it if there's no church involvement. Then you're going to have a porn industry. There's no way around it. It makes money. If you're going to keep a specific industry out, then you've got to put some time and effort and money into doing it, and the church has to be involved in doing it. There's no other way. So how does the church set community standards exactly? How do you do that? I mean, we're doing it, but you got to think about how you actually do it. The way you do it,
We have to vote it out.
well, you have to have prosecutors, judges, people that are sympathetic
Vote for 'em.
to what you want. Exactly. So you've got to get involved. You've got to vote for godly men. That's exactly what Scripture tells you to do. You can go back to Exodus 18. You've got a whole section on there on how to put your most godly men in positions of judges. And in fact, our whole judicial system came from that idea. You've got 3 levels You've got your district court, your appeals court, your Supreme Court. You've also got that at the state level, and that's how you do it. You elect godly men to office. Is this 3 more minutes? Okay.
I was just checking to see time. I want to throw a little wrench in there. You know, there's a lot of people have said you can't legislate morality.
But we're doing it.
No, we're not really. I don't think, because just taking pornography itself, it's worldwide right now.
Right.
It's unlimited through the movie, television, and
Sure.
internet. So, and that's not being regulated out.
But it could be. It could be because, like I said, we regulate that industry here.
Well, we are not. We are not worldwide. Even if you take Forsyth and Missouri and the United States, we're not going to regulate China and India.
It's not our job to regulate China, but it is our job
Well, we're
to
talking-
maintain the status quo in our country. That's the way I look at it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're assuming a majority of Christians who could carry the elections, and
Well, it's a must. Isn't that how our country got started?
but this country is not a majority of Christians. This area may be a majority of Christians,
Okay.
but the rest of the country is not.
Exactly. But we've got 300,000 churches here, approximately, from what the record I saw. 300,000 churches is a lot of people.
And we're losing about 3,500 a year.
Okay. And why do we lose people? There's a couple of reasons I've thought about is why we lose people. Number one, you're talking about younger generation that has these smartphones, they're on the computers, they're doing things. You've got to appeal to those people. You know, we should be recording. You know, one of the things I noticed on my YouTube account, here's just an example. 57% of people that watch these videos that I put on my account, 57% are mobile apps. That's huge. That means they're using smartphones to watch my videos. So while they're doing things where they're just not busy, they're sitting on there on the cell phone or their iPad or their computer in a coffee shop or wherever they are, Wi-Fi, but it's Wi-Fi, you see, or something like that. It's mobile, 57%. Well, don't you think our church needs to appeal to those people and try to get into that industry the best we can? Yeah. So we need to do other things.
So how well is the church doing? Let's look at that. I was reading this little brochure, and I was kind of alarmed myself. It reflects that 46% of people ages 18 to 34 consider themselves to have no religion. So we see which direction we're really going in.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We are going to have to shut her down,
Yeah,
but
sure.
Go ahead and finish up.
No, I can't finish. That's as far as I could get. I just wanted to cover the thoughts as best I could, and if want to do another class, fine. Because really a lot of the good stuff is under some of the other ones.
But it's well taken, the responsibility that Christians have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to be out there putting our thought and doing the best we can.
Yeah,
But one thing, as for the way I look at it, is electing godly leaders.
that's exactly right.
We need more TiVos.
Yeah.
And that starts at the individual level. The church works with individuals.
Turn that on.